Hello, hello. Testing, testing. 1 2 1 2. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. 1 2 1 2. Okay, guys. Okay, what's going on? My name is Alder Murray, and today we are doing the first episode of the Principles of Game Design. In this series, we're going to be talking about what it is exactly you need to be doing to make a game. It's the principles. So, you know, get your popcorn. I'm Ethos Lab now. Get your popcorn. Yeah, get your snacks, because we're about to be jumping in. Let's go. Okay, so getting right into it. Let me find my monitor capture. It's right here. Boom. So, I'm not going to be in the chat that much. We're not going to be playing much music. I'm just going to be sitting here and talking. I will be moderating, so no shenanigans will be going on in this chat, okay? But we're just going to be talking about game development and the principles of it. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about in the principles of game design is mapping. So why is mapping so important? Well, mapping is about as fundamental as it gets for what your game is going to be looking like if it's 3D. You have your player model, and that's what your character is going to be look like, and it will take up 30 to 40% of the screen, but the rest of the screen will be your game, and specifically they're going to be seeing your map, because your map's going to cover pretty much the entire screen except for your overlays, if you will. So this is what we're talking about today, mapping. So if you're just getting in here, welcome. But this is what we're going to be talking about. It's the principles of game design. Let's get right into it. So, overview. The principles of game design mapping. Number one, mapping can be broken down into three parts, and that's level design, environmental design, and the smaller details. The smaller details can also be broken down. Everything can be broken down, and it will. That's what this is going to be talking about. This is what this whole stream is going to be about today. So. Again, welcome if you're just getting in here. But yeah, let's get right into it. With level design, I started doing that. That's what I started doing initially, and then I got a little bit into environmental design, but I started with level design and Hammer through Valve's Source Engine. That's how I started. It's a great tool for making 3D levels. No doubt, you don't have to make any of your own assets. You can use all their assets. You can make your own mods, and it's easy peasy pretty much once you get going. And it's about as easy of mods as you can make. Realistically, they have the best tools for that. Those were the best tools, and continue to be very good for modding. I can't speak for any of the newer tools past that though. So I know that for years, Hammer Editor was top tier. But and that's what got me really into environmental design, and that's the modeling aspect and the assets that you make. I got into making models and assets because of level design. I'm gonna turn down my mic a little bit because I think it's a little loud. I think that's better. I got into environmental design because of my level design, because I wanted to make my levels look nicer, and I wanted custom assets. So I started to do research into environmental design, and I started to do my own environmental design, and I eventually became a 3D modeler because of it. And then the smaller details, we're going to be getting into that later. But the first thing we're going to be talking about, obviously, level design. We're going to be talking about understanding mapping's main components, and again, that's level design. And I have two definitions pretty much for that, and that is, it is literally the design of the level. I can't be more specific than that. It's in the name, it's in the title pretty much. It's literally the design of the level. And the next is, it is what determines the enjoyment or reward of the game. And that's true because the game is being determined because of the level, because of the thing that the player is playing on. You can think of it as like, we're walking on the ground of Earth, and there may be things happening around us, but those things wouldn't be able to happen without the ground. And that's literally what your game level is going to be. It's going to be the ground. It's going to be the things around you, and that's why we were talking about terrain the other day. Um, and the next thing we're going to be talking about is environmental design or environment design. And that's what sells the scene or setting. Um, it projects a specific setting from which immersion is enhanced or created. Um, Specifically, what I can say about that is with environment design, it is what creates the illusion of being somewhere. It's the thing that drives the essence of what it is art wise a game is going to make you feel, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, and it doesn't right now. It's fine, it doesn't right now. If you're an environmental artist, like, you probably know what I'm talking about. You know, you make assets, we make assets that are meant to make the player feel like they're in that environment. They're meant to make them, you know, make themselves like feel like they're there, and that's what immersion is. And then the other stuff, of course, is mechanics, and that's like how the game plays, writing. That's how, you know, the story of the game, and a new medium. I'm going to be talking about that later. That's what I do already. You know, I'll tell you guys about my website if there's enough people here or whatever. But if not, you know, you can probably look it up. It's not that hard to find through my. Well, I'll just tell it right now. It's rwirestudio.org is my website, and then I'll say that later too. So, project objective. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to clearly demonstrate mapping in game development, and to do that, we're going to be talking into more detail about the overview that I just went over. And I got this frog here. You know, he's looking like, you know, he's just taking a little thought. He's like, you know, what is it that I have to do to map? That's you guys, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Understanding level design. So, what is level design really? You know, we just talked about like some, you know, nifty one word definitions, but, you know, what is it that creates, or how is it that the processes of creating a level, you know? Sorry about that. Just taking a sip of water, but let's skip on ahead here. So, level design. What this is down here is a white box. A white box is a blueprint almost of the actual level, or what the level is going to look like. It's kind of the layout. It's the layout of the level. It's how people are going to move from one point to another. It's what they're going to use, you know? And that's what it's going to look like, is just this, you know, kind of boxy, you know, ground, because that's all it really is. Because then you come in here and you put in the walls and you put in the ceiling if it's indoors. But if it's a linear game, this is really what it's going to be looking like. You're going to go from one end to the other. That's what a linear game is. That's what most single player games are. But yeah, so level design. I've seen a few trends with level design recently, and I'm going to talk about those. And the trend number one is flow, and flow obviously has existed since the beginning of level design, since John Carmack's id. I'm trying to think of the other main developer who created level design what was the precursor to Hammer. The level editor that I use was used for a game called Quake, the original Quake, and that level editor would be the driving force. I mean, they also made Doom, and they use a very similar. I think they use a similar level editor to that as well. So, you know, these are games that were hugely impactful because of their level design. And like now we're several years in the future, you know. So like, what is it? How is it interacting now? You know. So, you know, we have a few things to talk about here, and the first one is frequency. Frequency is the likelihood of something happening, and that's, you know, plot areas of the plot where stuff kind of just, you know, like things occur, action, if you will. I say that over here. It's like, you know, it's the events in the game. It's what is the driving force to make players want to play the game almost. And, you know, and the length between those things happening. So like how often those things happen is frequency. That's what I'm trying to say. And in most games, they're beginning to have a lot of frequent action, but the games are getting longer, so they're good pacing, and that's what this is about. And I talk about a little bit of amplitude. And the reason I have frequency and amplitude over here actually is because I have this. This is a wave, and this, you can kind of imagine this wave as the thing that is kind of the plot, or the flow and, you know, pacing of the game. So it kind of starts right here, and, you know, like maybe it will start high, and then it will probably start like low, so it'll start down here, but then it'll have climbing action, and then it'll peak somewhere, and then it'll have falling action. Will get to a low point, and then it'll come back up again and peak again, and it's like it will just become reoccurring action. Maybe they'll even get better pacing, better amplitude, and that's how intense the action gets, and that's how high you can think the amplitude of this wave is. And like that's how often, you know, well, the flow is how often you're running into such events, and the amplitude is, or the pacing is, the thing that's how intense that action is. So it's like, I'm a player, I'm getting into a gunfight. Am I getting into a gunfight with one guy, with one NPC, with one villain, or am I getting into a gunfight with 5? You know, that's the difference. So we're gonna get rid of that. The next thing we're going to be talking about is understanding environmental design. So environmental design is a very fundamental thing, again, to games, because environments, for especially 3D games, is what, again, sells immersion. It sells the scene. And this is, you know, a lot of environmental artists, I don't even think they know this, but when you're making level designs, it's very similar to what geographers and people who are architects and like landscapers, they come together and they make stuff like this. And these are just full environments, like real man-made environments that people create. You know, these could be amusement parks and stuff like that. And again, you can do that in games, and that's what it is. It's the setting, it's the elements, and those elements are assets, which are the models, the sounds, the entities, and the textures. Those are the things that are selling the game. You know, those are the things that people are looking at, that they're seeing. And, you know, obviously level design is also a part of environmental design, because in level design is where the player is going. You know, that's what we just talked about, and it's like how often stuff is happening and whatnot. But like level design is what is going to determine, you know, the path of the player, and then environmental design is going to determine what that path looks like. So depending on where that path goes, it can determine what it will obviously look like. So understanding the other stuff, and we're almost done here. I've done you know, pretty short stream, and I just want to say, like, this is probably going to be like a 10-15 minute video, and I'm going to upload it to YouTube, but I'm streaming it on Twitch because that's what I like to do. I might stream a little bit after this as well. We'll figure it out. But understanding the other stuff, we'll get right into this. So how to achieve, like, what is it, you know, that you guys at home can do to do this now? Because I've talked about this stuff that are fundamentals and you should be learning it, but what can you do to learn it? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, a lot of people would tell you, you know, go start learning 3D or whatever. And I'm a 3D artist, and I'm telling you right now, do not do that. Do not straight jump into 3D art. You know, hone your 2D skills a little bit, then come to 3D, and you'll understand fundamentals much better in 3D as well. I'm going to say that right now. But what can you do as a game designer to become good at these things? Because you have artists and you have game designers, and those two come together to create great games. But what can you as a game designer do now to fill in for that artist if you can't afford it, or if you don't have time to become one yourself, but you want to become more efficient, you want to become better at that stuff, you just don't want to sink all your time into it? And the first thing I'm going to recommend to you guys is make a text game. This is what this is. It's a text game. And what a text game is it's just, you know, very simplistic programming. It's a very simplistic programming approach. I would use Lua if I was to do it right now. I could do it quick. In fact, hey, maybe I'll do that right after the stream. We might just jump into a Lua game. Why not? You know, that's what I feel like doing. We might just do that. And you know what? This is what, you know, I'm talking about. You got to have that ambition a little bit to be able to jump into this. So that's why you start low. You start with something simplistic. You start with something that can give you the fundamentals of a game that you're already going to build, because that's what a text game is. It's like the writing. It's the writing of a game. So if you build a text game, you can build another game on top of that potentially. if done right. And that's the writing. And then you have mechanics in the text game. You can have all different types of stuff in text games. You can have role playing. You can have dice rolling. You can have odds and statistics in this text game. These are what text games allow these days. You have like Cookie Clicker and you have Hero Clicker, and those games, are basically text games, except you're just sitting there and you're clicking. And it's giving you, different scenarios. So that's just my opinion. Not really my opinion. Those are actually kind of facts. But, we're going to, this is the end. So, if you guys like the stream right now, if you want to keep watching videos like this, I would recommend following. I'm going to post it to YouTube too. So, I would check that out too. But, I would stick around if you guys want to watch me code a text game. Thanks for anybody that's tuned in thus far. It's been awesome. I think my recent streams, I've just really enjoyed them. So, all right, we're gonna get into text gaming, and we're gonna end this video. Okay, see you guys. I'm gonna restart the stream.